Secretary Rubio, first off, I'm proud to have voted for you. I wish you were in the Senate, but I'm proud that you're Secretary of State, and I can tell you, Floridians are very proud of you. As you know, Miami-Dade finally, for the first time in history, is now more Republican than Democrat. I'm sure they looked at you and saw all the success you've had, so one of the reasons it happened. Can you talk about what you're trying to accomplish with your reorganization and how that's going to improve national security?
Well, ultimately, the goal of reorganization is to make the State Department, put State Department at the center of our foreign policy, which people will look at and say, well, how, isn't that what it's always been? But it actually had lost that role. And one of the reasons why it had lost this role is inability to deliver quickly. In essence, the inability to deliver quickly on whatever policymakers determined they wanted them to do, and there were structural reasons for that and the like. The other thing is that we are now in an era that requires, I think every era has required this, but now more than ever, a foreign policy that's cohesive, where all the elements of national power, including soft power, which has been talked about here today with foreign aid, but also the hard work of diplomacy, of understanding that sometimes when you're dealing with another nation state, they're not going to behave the way you would want your country to behave, but it's in our national interest to have a relationship with them and be able to influence discrete decisions that they make on one topic or another. And all of this has to be coordinated, and that wasn't happening. We had functional bureaus that were basically in charge of some human rights issue. And then we had an embassy. And oftentimes when you would travel abroad, you would find that our embassy and or our regional bureau and our functional bureau were at odds with one another. Because the functional bureau was pushing one agenda, the embassy was pushing another. And this was also true with USAID. By the way, this idea that USAID got along well with the State Department is false. And embassy after embassy, during my time in oversight, you would hear complaints about how USAID was funding programs that State Department had no insight into and in many ways contradicted what the State Department was driving at the embassy level. So what we're asking for now through this reorganization is to bring it all under one roof so that we can conduct foreign policy at the regional and local level in a way that's cohesive and concise and can deliver results. But it's also where you're going to get the best ideas from. I read cables from our missions around the world every single day. Some of the most important information that I get as Secretary of State is not from intelligence reports, it's not from news articles, it's not from briefings from somebody. It is from a cable that comes directly from that embassy that is identifying a problem and or an opportunity that I may not hear about for months if it ever makes its way through the system. So we want to empower that because that's our front lines. These are the people that are on the ground every single day dealing with the government, dealing with society, and they're identifying opportunities and problems months, if not years, in advance of what Maine State or others are identifying. So the goal of reorganization is to shorten that time frame because we can't afford to move slow. The world moves very, very quickly. This decision we made on Syria, had we run that through a traditional process, would have taken months and months and months of interagency this and people talking that and all the different boxes that have to be checked in some memo that gets to me. Our ability to move quickly on a discrete, on a unique opportunity in a time-effective manner, I think is going to bear dividends for the national security of our country if it works out. And we want to be able to see more of that. And that's really the goal of reorganization. People think this is a cost-cutting exercise. There may be savings. There need to be savings. We just had our credit rating downgraded. You talk about a foreign policy problem? That's the first thing our foreign interlocutors wanted to mention to me on Sunday in Rome, is that our credit rating was just downgraded. We have a debt problem, but that's obviously not a State Department issue, but that's our problem. But that's a problem. But this is not just about cost savings. This is about providing a more efficient, faster-moving, more effective State Department and as a tool of diplomacy. The State Department should be at the center of American foreign policy making. And that's our goal, to create one, to reorganize one that can deliver on that.
I want to thank you and President Trump for your focus on Latin America. Can you tell me, what do you think the proper role of the Organization of American States is? What should they be doing?
Well, you would think that they would be able to be a forum to deal with challenges in the region. None more pressing right now than what's happening in Haiti. I mean, Haiti's basically been taken over by a coalition of gangs who they're not interested in governing the country. They're not interested in running the country. They just think if there's no government, we're in charge of this territory, and from here we can do all the drug running and organ smuggling and human smuggling, all the stuff we want. And that's what they're trying to do, and that's what they're doing. That's a very unique challenge. Our traditional peacekeeping missions are designed to keep ideological groups from fighting each other, or tribal groups from fighting each other, or in many cases nation states from fighting each other. But that traditional approach is not going to solve this very unique challenge. It is a country basically taken over by 25 to 30,000 individuals who are members of criminal gangs who simply want to control territory so they can hijack trucks, steal and or charge exorbitant fees for fuel to move across the country, kidnap people and traffic in humans, traffic in drugs across the border into the Dominican Republic and through sea-bound lanes. And there's things that we need to do. For example, we need to figure, and we've been working with the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, the ATF, and others, on how can we cut the flow of guns that are leaving the Miami River on containers and reaching not just Haiti, but Jamaica and Trinidad and other places. So there's more we can do on that front. But from the OAS's perspective, if ever there was a regional crisis that you would think an organization like this could step forward and provide a force or a group of countries that working together could help solve, it would be the OAS. And we're prepared to play a leading role in that. But we do need buy-in from other partners in the region who are as affected, if not more so, by what's happening there. So that's one example of what the OAS should help on. And obviously the other is on the defense of democracy, which is the OAS is a collection of democratic institutions. In places like Nicaragua, there is no. In Venezuela, in Cuba, there is no democracy.
Can you talk about how you're working to reform the foreign service officer recruitment?
In terms of reforms? Well,
Yep.
well, two things we're doing. On the promotion board, we're not getting rid of the promotion board. I read some the other day. We have simply suspended it for a month while we reevaluate how we promote people. We want to promote people on the basis of how good they are. I know this is a shocking view, but we want to promote people on the basis of how good they are. And frankly, on occasion, you will find that a more junior officer, meaning they've only been there 10 years instead of 20, is really good and deserves a promotion. And if you don't promote them, they're going to leave the Foreign Service. The same is true for how we recruit people. We want to widen the base of people. And in fact, one of the things we've thought about is, are there people in the middle of a career doing something else in the private sector that are interested in entering diplomacy? There was a program to do that back in the 1980s, and it was very successful. Maybe these are people that will give us 15 or 20 years in that regard. So we are looking to expand our talent pool, but ultimately, we are also seeking to have a system internally where we are rewarding merit and performance, and not simply seniority or where you are in the pecking order based on how long you've been there. And that doesn't mean that if you've been there a long time, you're not good. But it means there are some people that haven't been there as long that are just as good or not better. And we want to make sure they're promoted, because if not, we're going to lose them. We're going to lose them to the private sector.
Thank you. You're doing a great job.